Hello boaters, welcome to Narrowboat Journeys. This is day 2 of my epic 2019 canal cruise. It's the 18th of January 2019 and I'm on the South Oxford Canal and I'm just about to enter Somerton Deep lock. Since the weather wasn't too lovely on this trip, it was dry but grey and a little bit breezy. I'm just going to show selected highlights of this trip rather than the complete journey. I've covered it all before in previous videos. So as we enter the Somerton Deep lock, this is the deepest lock on the South Oxford Canal and it's about 12 feet, so it's quite daunting really when you're inside, and the turbulence of the water can be very strong, so you need to open the paddles very gently. On previous occasions I've been in this lock and the top gate has been leaking very badly. Usually get reeds and things like that stuck in it. Can easily flood the front of your boat if you're not careful. And the boat's in, we're closing the big heavy lower lock gate with a broken paddle on it. There's so many of the locks on the Oxford Canal have got taped up paddles. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. And looking down at my boat, you notice I keep it gently in tick over in forward gear. This keeps the boat gently pressed up against the top gate or the sill and controls it. When I open the paddles, it'll stop it getting washed around all over the place and bashing too much. It's a pretty good technique, but you need to make sure there's nothing that can catch the bow of your boat as you're coming up in the lock. You do need to make sure your fenders can't get jammed underneath anything. Anyway, we're through, and here we are, we're approaching bridge 193. It's a lift bridge. A public footpath crosses this bridge. It can be either open or closed. Luckily today it's open, so I'm going through. Sometimes if the bridge is wet it can be very heavy and can be difficult to lift up, especially if you're on your own. But all did not go quite to plan with this bridge. You do have to be very wary of lift bridges on the Oxford. Some bridges are permanently locked upright. Some are usually down and you have to lift them. Other ones, like this one, could be either up or down. But all looks well at this point. It's up, fine. It hasn't rained, so the bridge shouldn't be too wet. So I go through and watch what happens after I've gone through. I just managed to grab it with my other camera. And then the bridge suddenly decides to come down on its own. Now it's not coming down with any force, but because my boat was moving underneath it, if it had come down on the roof of my boat, it would have destroyed solar panels or whatever. And here we are now at Aynho, going towards Aynho Wharf. We've got long-term moorings on the right. We've got more long-term moorings, CRT long-term moorings on the left. But up just before you get to the bridge there are a couple of visitor moorings that you could stop. But I've mentioned before about this bridge. This is a very low bridge. you need to be extremely careful. For some reason the towpath comes right out more than like halfway into the canal under this bridge. It's way too big, so you can easily catch the side of your boat on the off side of the bridge, and you'll see a lot of damage to the stonework to prove that this happens quite frequently. The only advice I can give you is to make sure you've got nothing too much on your roof, especially on the off side, and to keep as close to the towpath as you can when you're going underneath it. And then pray, because even at slow speed, if you catch anything on the bridge, it's gonna make a mess. The other thing to point out is that very often you'll get a crosswind here as well, blowing from left to right, which is pushing you in the direction you don't want to go. So be careful about this bridge. There should be a warning sign on it. CRT, if you're listening, this bridge does need a warning sign, or a wooden barrier in the water to stop boats going over too far to the offside, and then that would protect the roofs. Fortunately, I go through here without any incident. But it hasn't always been that way. You can see the chunks out of the stonework and the scrapes along the bricks. We've got the Aynho Wharf boatyard here on the right, where you can get all the usual things. There's also a water point on that side as well. On the left it's all visitor moorings. The winding hole is just here on your right, so you can't moor on the towpath side, otherwise you'll be obstructing it. But there are posts in the ground to mark out where you shouldn't stop. So just a bit north of Aynho Wharf there's some really nice little mooring spot here. You can stay here for 14 days. It's called Belchers Bridge, is the nearest bridge to it. It's a lift bridge which is normally permanently up, so no worries about that one. And I'm just going to stop here and then move on again tomorrow or the next day. We'll see how it goes. All depends on the weather these days. I could get frozen in yet. Time to let the cats out. Always Bushka first. Bushka's the brown one. Midge is the silver tabby. There's Bushka. And there's Midge. Always keen to get to a new place. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.